Hi, I'm Dave Kalman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of TapGift Network. TapGift.
Welcome to Assignment on BBC World Service with me, Ed Butler. Today, I'm in Silicon Valley, California, and I'm watching entrepreneur Dave Kalman, a small, stocky 40-something, making perhaps the pitch of his life.
They get great deals, prizes, and chances to interact with their friends.
Dave is one of a group of high-tech dreamers who've gathered today with 2 minutes each to pitch in front of a panel of investors. They're staking their claim to funding. It's a public event, a kind of beauty contest for startups, but in this fiercely competitive world of technology, getting support to become the next Facebook or Google can be a major challenge. In the face of the investors' forensic gaze, Dave seems visibly nervous.
We know this is true from our experience with our 3 customers. It's a service that works across multiple...
The bell goes, time's up. Now for the investors' questions.
All of these major sport teams already have all those channels. Why would they work with you?
Well, we're not trying to replace the existing channels and apps that other teams have. What we do is support those by making them transactable through a real-time transaction engine.
Are we done?
Yes. Thank you very much.
How did that go for you, Dave?
I was nowhere. It was terrifying, but I have to get better. They also say you have to pitch 100 times or maybe 200 times before you'll find the right person who's ready to buy from you.
You got that thick a skin? You can do this 200 times?
Absolutely. I'm going to prove that I can do it.
But some people say that this app game is a young man's game, Dave. Do you feel threatened by the young bucks out there fighting you for space online?
Well, I learned from them, but they need to learn something from me as well. Because I've been around this block and I've seen the cycles and the things that sound the same year after year.
Fighting talk. But is he right to think that age won't be a factor when it comes to succeeding in high tech? Some aren't so sure.
There is a feeling that if you're over 35 that you won't work as hard, or that you may not be as up with the latest technology, or that you may be influenced by large corporations, right, and not be nimble and agile enough.
You see this pool of older workers in the Silicon Valley area with very good credentials who cannot get anyone to basically even return a call. They can't get in to do the interview.
In this programme, I'll be looking at claims that Silicon Valley, the nucleus of the global tech industry, has developed an unhealthy obsession with the young, with icons like Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, Drew Houston of Dropbox, guys who emerged from college with bold ideas and no inhibitions. The older heads, even those in their 40s, are, the argument goes, simply over the hill.
California.
Well, I've come south of San Francisco to one of the most famous names in Silicon Valley, surely Google, and the Googleplex. This is the headquarters of the mighty search engine, and it's not just a very large office building or a series of them. It calls itself a campus, which is perhaps appropriate because it's populated mostly with recent college graduates. Around me there's bikes everywhere, festooned in the classical primary colours of this place. As well as a tennis court, there's a mobile fitness unit. Young Googlers there apparently working out the stresses of the job. Inside, table tennis tables, fantastic canteens. They even have what's called a Google Pod, a place where you can lie down and sleep if the standard 60 to 70 hour working weeks that they quite often have here, I'm told, get a bit too much. The median age is just 29 years old. Hi. Megan, lovely to meet you.
Hey, Ross from Dropbox.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Wow, a reception party.
Dropbox is another of the latest big names in this area. It provides online data storage. The brainchild of 2 college graduates, the company is just 7 years old, but is already valued in the billions of dollars with more than 500 employees. Its head of marketing, Kitty Osline, 32 years old, is showing me around.
So we're going to walk down here. There's like video games rooms sometimes. They're everything from like gym, the Mint is a games room.
Okay, we have to step to one side now because a man is coming past on a scooter. Is that the normal way to get around the office?
Yes, because it's actually, like I said, a quarter of a mile to get around. Quite often, if you have to get to a conference room quickly, you will jump on a scooter.
So it gets you fit, this office?
Yes, I don't have to work out as much.
Step out of the way as another scooter whizzes past. You don't have any accidents, do you?
No, but there are signs, if you can see, like, watch out.
Yeah.
Dodging the scooters, I was beginning to sense something of a college dorm atmosphere here too. Loads of people, hard at work, but clearly enjoying lots of opportunities for youthful recreation. Late-night Lego and ping-pong sessions among them. And not a grey hair to be seen.
Right, we're stepping out now into an office. Back to the Future, it says.
I was hoping to get you the one that has Lego on it, but we're in the one next door.
So when it comes to kind of like hiring people, who do you look for when you hire new staff here?
That's a great question. We're really looking for the best people in their field. So whether it's engineering or marketing, we're looking for people who are innovating as well.
I would say, looking around, there aren't many older faces. It's quite a young company, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say we have generally like a younger company. We're very engineering and product based, and so we actually have a lot of college recruits.
Do you need to be young to have the skills?
Oh, not at all. Look at me.
Well, you're not old, Kitty, are you? You're about, what, 30?
Oh, no, I'm over 30. Yeah.
Does that make you old?
No, not at all. But just saying that we have, like, absolutely age does not matter here. And we're definitely looking for people who bring a unique experience and skill set, actually, for what we need to get done.
Dropbox haven't published the age profile of their workforce, but a recent survey by the US company PayScale revealed that out of 32 leading tech firms, only 6 in the United States had an average age above 35. That's well below the national norm. In 2007, a 22-year-old Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook famously declared to a conference that the young were just smarter. And I quote, "I want to stress the importance of being young and technical. Young people just have simpler lives. Why are most chess masters under 30? He asked. Well, that does seem pretty explicit. Some say when it comes to getting hired here, it has become the standard view.
The fact is, we're seeing people's careers end in their mid-40s if they are laid off through no fault of their own.
This is Glenn Friedman, a tall, powerfully built man in his early 60s. At a park just a couple of miles from Google's headquarters, he's agreed to share with me his own Silicon Valley story. He's a highly trained engineer and a former company executive with some 30 years' experience, but he's found himself out of regular work for more than a decade now. Even getting seen for interviews, he says, is a challenge.
In one case, the president of a smaller company looked at me and says, you've been a high-powered guy. Why would you want a job like this? Of course, the answer is, I wanted a paycheck.
So you scale down your demands, and even then, they look at you askance.
Yes. Of course, no one's going to be really explicit about it. And I see this partly because I actually chair a networking group of people who are looking for work. I know specific examples of people who have skills that should be transferable, who cannot get anyone to basically even return a call. They can't get in to do the interview.
With the guys who you talk to, what measures do they resort to get employed?
You immediately strip your university dates off your resume. Cut back on the number of entries you put in a resume, just so that you're not begging to be binned into the old pile.
You make yourself look less experienced.
Yes. I'd say you definitely see people dyeing their hair. I mean, if you have a choice between walking in with white hair or colored hair, why would you give yourself that handicap, right?
Do you get depressed?
I think there's a certain amount of that. I fight it off pretty well, but I think you certainly can't keep up your energy level for looking for a new job, and you take some time off from that pursuit.
To getting rejected every day, you mean?
The problem is you don't get rejected every day.
You just get ignored.
You get ignored.
Of course, there are those who say that this is just the law of the jungle. Older workers simply don't have the programming skills, the understanding of new network trends that the modern tech sector requires.
Man with microphone.
Man with microphone, Ed Butler, hello.
Excellent.
I've travelled south of San Francisco now to Menlo Park, one of the sleepy, leafy communities within the area known as Silicon Valley. It's the base of Sequoia Capital and its legendary 59-year-old chairman, investor Michael Moritz. He's credited with spotting the potential of numerous Silicon Valley titans, from Google to PayPal, Yahoo to YouTube. And he dismisses claims that ageism is a factor here.
If you look at some of the greatest companies that have been formed, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, the founders, when they started these companies, were fairly young, and they were monomaniacal, and they were obsessive. And that sort of single-minded obsession tends to exclude everything else, family and husbands and wives and children. And there's a period in time in life when people have the incredible luxury of spending 100% of their thinking time only concentrating on building a product or starting a company. So I don't think it's got to do with a prejudice. I think it's just the way that these companies tend to get off the ground.
Therefore, when a venture capitalist like yourself, or let's say an employer of an existing company, is looking for new staff, they see a guy who has a wife and children, they think, I'm not going to get 80 hours a week out of him. I need a workaholic.
I disagree with that. I think there are extremely adventurous, sprightly 60-year-olds who work incredibly hard. So I don't think there's one rule, and I certainly don't subscribe to the idea that there is a prejudice against age. I do subscribe to the idea that there's a prejudice against bad ideas.
Perhaps it's important to make a distinction here. Many older workers, those like Glenn Friedman, are struggling because the San Francisco tech industry has lost a large proportion of its manufacturing jobs, some 50,000 of them to be precise, as big companies like Apple and Intel move their main factories overseas. The lifeblood of Silicon Valley these days is mostly in new startups, from web designers to biotech firms to new consumer apps. So how is it for older people trying to launch their startup ideas in these areas? Is it any easier for them?
Hey, Jeremy, good morning. How are you?
Good. Come on in.
This is Jeremy Thomas. He's a 36-year-old entrepreneur who's decided to risk it all for a chance at the big time. I've come to his rented apartment in the heart of one of San Francisco's more upmarket districts, and he's leading me upstairs to see the view from his roof.
Wow.
So you got some of the icons. Alcatraz, Golden Gate Bridge.
Alcatraz, Golden Bridge. And what's the dome again?
Palace of Fine Arts.
A penal colony and a symbol of, America's aspiration towards the future.
That's it.
It's a lovely view. It's a fantastic city.
Yep.
To be young in.
Yes.
Jeremy's taken quite a gamble. He's abandoned a successful day job in San Diego just as his wife was giving birth to their first child, and now he's struggling both to raise his family and the investment money he needs for his publishing startup, Inkshares.com. He seems bright, fresh-faced and young to me, but he says that in San Francisco, 36 does not feel young to some of the guys who matter.
I shave my face on purpose because I look much younger. I usually don't mention or volunteer the fact that I have a 16-month-old son or that I'm married, because that just sort of puts me up in that higher tier.
Yeah, I will say, with your stubble, which you now have because you haven't shaved, there is considerable evidence of grey, which does put a few years on you.
That's right. So, by and large, I try and make myself look younger just to not even have to have age enter in as a factor. It's interesting, for my wife and I, having a child, you see these people putting in crazy hours at work, and for me, I need to leave at 6:30, 7 o'clock every day so I can get home, see my kid, help my wife. And I have to work a little bit harder, I think, to be able to balance the family and the work life, whereas my coworkers really don't have to do that. I guess for me, though, being 36, I see these kids and their houses they own. I can't tell you, I must see like, 2 Maseratis a day driven by a guy who's 26 years old. And I'm like, how did that guy do that? I'm 36 and I'm still struggling, to do this. And this guy like graduated, had his first job, sold it to a company, and now he's set for life. It looks like, at least on the surface, that everybody is killing it. And they kill it fast. For me,
and it's killing you.
Yeah, that's right. Killing me too. So it's a bit humbling.
Thanks. Hey, good to see you all.
At a downtown meeting, another hopeful audience and another presentation. This one by Jessica Ma, a remarkable young woman who was just 20 years old when she got her first $1 million of investment funding. By her own admission, her startup, Indinero, had been unlikely to work in its original form, but the investors didn't seem to care. She was young and brilliant. She's since had to entirely rethink the business premise just to keep the thing afloat. She also admits she found herself trading heavily on the mystique of the youthful business prodigy when she first courted investment money.
That is something I've traded on. It's really survival here. Like when we first started the company and we burnt through that first $1 million, that was my tuition. I was paying $1 million in tuition money to learn how to run a business, and it didn't make sense, and I had to come back and think about that. Like,
how come all of these very smart guys were piling the money into you then, do you think?
I think they were piling the money in because they thought, let's see what Jessica can do. Like, this is probably not going to work out, but we want to see what's next.
No, they're not charities. These are money men, right? Surely their mission is to make money eventually.
If you look at the logic, for a first-time entrepreneur, you're probably going to lose your money. That's just the fact of how the universe works. So most of my investors, they know how they were motivated, they know how smart they were, and how they would ultimately figure it out, even if the first version didn't work out. And I think that's why I was able to get them to back me.
So, businesses invest in youth not so much for a return as for a stake in an entrepreneur's potential. It does help to explain the obsession with kids. They do, after all, have more years ahead of them. But it also occurs to me, if there's age discrimination at play here, it is against the law. Why aren't I reading about more cases brought to the courts? I turn for answers to San Francisco employment lawyer Cliff Palevsky.
The decision to even bring the lawsuit is complicated. Because if someone is out looking for a job, they need a job. And bringing a lawsuit for age discrimination is not the best way to get the next job. So I try to be cautious in advising people in the first place. Unless you've got a strong case, it's not a great idea to put your head out there, especially if it's got gray hair on it.
Well, if it's so hard to prove, how do you know it's going on?
Oh, well, we know it's going on because of the simple statistics. And what's interesting is that there's a subculture that has developed where you're surrounded by young people. And when the CEO is 25 years old, you're not going to expect them to be hiring a 55-year-old CFO who wants to hang out with their parents, which is really what the startup orientation is.
I would say, Cliff, I've made a lot of programs about human rights and other issues. This is the first time I've been invited to feel sorry for middle-class, middle-aged white men.
Well, it's interesting because those are the folks with the mortgages. With the kids in college, it's really scary to be in your mid-50s and to be concerned that you may never get another job at that level again. And I think people just need to realize that stereotypes are usually wrong, and it's not a good way to run a business.
As a veteran San Franciscan yourself, are you starting to feel old, Cliff?
You know, I just had a birthday 2 days ago, 61 years old, but I don't feel old yet. There's something about this city that keeps you young.
Well, living amongst all the young people, I guess.
That's right, and pretending, and not looking in the mirror too often, yeah.
But some people are looking in the mirror and not liking what they see. In fact, with all this talk of being over the hill at 40, I may be joining them. I am, let's just say, of a certain age, and this week I've started noticing more my own grey hairs and wrinkles.
Are you ready? And you're not going to yell at me? Cross your heart?
I've come to the clinic of Dr. Seth Matarasso, a dermatologist and cosmetic surgeon. He's been in practice many years and has become, he tells me, America's second largest dispenser of Botox, the anti-wrinkle medication. Increasingly, he says, it's younger male clientele hoping to make it in the tech industry who are coming knocking at his door.
It's not atypical for someone to come and say, gee, I want to be able to compete with the younger generation. A little bit of Botox, a little bit of a filler, maybe a light laser where there's no downtime.
So this is to iron out the wrinkles?
Iron out or soften wrinkles, finer, thinner lines.
Do 20-something guys come in?
20-something guys and girls come in. There is not a day that goes by because there are things that they can do.
I'm a man of a certain age, Seth. You look at me now. What do you recommend?
You know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been caught in that trick before. You know what? You do what bothers you.
Okay, that's excellent advice, and you read me perfectly. So, I still have a bit of hair. I'm not a bald guy, listeners. It's growing up the sides there, and it's almost disappearing on top. So now, help me with the hair. What would you suggest?
Truthfully, hair loss is a very big problem for men. It can prematurely age you. It bothers you, you'd be a great candidate for hair transplants.
You'd stitch in individual...
You bet. That's going to give you a big bang for your buck. And in the tech world, it's one of the more common things we do. The aging process never ends. And I treat my patients like I would want to be treated. Empathy, forthright, honesty, certainly a lot of humor, and lots of facial needles.
Outside his home, Jeremy Thomas has invited me out on a morning run, a popular Californian activity, and one I suppose that helps when you're trying to keep up. This city now has more self-made billionaires under 40 than anywhere else on Earth, and we're running past some of their homes.
Do you find it's important to stay fit when you're up against guys 10 years younger than you?
That's it. Gotta keep that skin tight. No wrinkles.
And this area has changed a lot since you arrived.
The old money is selling their houses to the younger crowd who've gone public or had an exit. And they're moving in, inviting their friends, lots of parties, and it's changing the demographics of this area. Maybe we should walk up this part.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah. But all the new money here is tech money, right?
It's all tech money. So Johnny Ive, for example, of Apple fame, PayPal co-founders, it's all right here.
Yeah.
I mean, there are amazing views.
And you have amazing hills, which is pretty punishing for joggers like us, right?
Yeah, you can get pretty fit pretty fast.
Yeah.
Tired from my run, but I have to say not really feeling any younger, I am left with a nagging question about this obsession with youth. Silicon Valley is, after all, admired the world over as the place that identifies and fosters new innovation. So how come it's marginalizing so many older workers? Doesn't that mean it's missing out on valuable talent? Dan Scheinman reckons there is a blind spot at work here, and he's going to exploit it. He's a long-term investor, and he's begun quietly pumping his money into older entrepreneurs, the talent that others, he feels, are ignoring.
If you look at the greatest businesses that have been found in Silicon Valley, they were founded generally by contrarians. People who went left when the herd was going right. And for someone like me who has less capital than an institutional fund, it's also about finding opportunities where others aren't looking. There is a feeling that if you're over 35 that you won't work as hard, or that you may not be as up with the latest technology, or that you may be influenced by large corporations, right, and not be nimble and agile enough.
Is that not true? I mean, I don't want to say something kind of brutish and cruel to people of your age and mine, Dan, but we're different from when we were 20.
Right. I think we have to be careful about taking things that contain elements of truth and applying to every single person we look at. And that's where, again, there's opportunity.
How's it going for you so far as a venture capitalist?
It's been going very well, knock on wood. So there's some later stage companies that I'm involved with. The most notable one recently has just raised north of $250 million. The two founders worked twice as hard as anyone else they knew. He's passionately committed to the success of his company in a way that's no different than a 28-year-old. The thing that's different is he's seen a lot of bumps. He has more experience and he can know how to navigate tricky times. My job is to find the story of the person and to understand who they are. And that's what you have to do in my shoes.
I've spoken to a range of investors and businesses for this program, And it's clear that if there is age discrimination going on, it's largely on a subtle level. It's unspoken, and much of it even unconscious. It's also important to remember that as a mecca for entrepreneurs, this place isn't like most cities. It's more a kind of high-tech Hollywood, a home for dreamers. Inevitably, most of those who come here arrive hoping to make it, but they end up failing, whatever age they happen to be. It can be tough dealing with that. I asked Jeremy Thomas if he was prepared to contemplate a plan B.
Do you ever ponder going back into a regular paid job?
All the time. I mean, having benefits, having that dependable income. Yeah, I mean, I yearn for that. But then I always come back to the thing that drove me here. And it sounds a bit corny, but you only have one life. And in my last job, I was going down that path of, a secure corporate job. And I thought, well, I have the skill. I create software. What if I could use that skill to actually build something meaningful? And so I always want to know that I've given it everything that I could. And I haven't done that yet.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah. You've been listening to Assignment, produced and presented by me, Ed Butler. If you'd like to hear more from the series, go to bbcworldservice.com/assignment.